Hey everybody, this is Ryan Deal again with 605sports.com. We are joined again by Jon Akre of 605sports.com. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. Plugging along here in the middle of summer with some more coverage of some amateur baseball and some other things. And this is another amateur baseball report to talk about some topics and some other things going on with amateur baseball. And John's been plugging away at some stories. Why don't you tell us about one you did here just a few days ago about the Ramona Express and what they got going on up there?
Yeah, it was something that we kind of caught wind of, late last week. The Ramona Express, not a very well-known team in the state, just their third year in existence. And last night they actually played, or not last night, last Wednesday, they played their first ever home game. They had played roughly 15 or so home games through the first 2 years, but they always played them like at the opponent's field. And that was just because their home field in Ramona just, really wasn't up to par um, in terms of, having hosting a big league game, baseball game like that. It had hosted, softball games, little league games, things like that. But it just needed a really big renovation. And so, talking with their manager, Logan DeRungs, um, last few years, they started raising money. They got a big grant from the Twins Community Fund, and they got to work about end of last year, and they extended the infield out because it was the infield dirt was only really fit for about 60-foot bases or so. They had football goalposts out in the outfield. They played a lot of the Oldham, Ramona, Rutland football games out there, so they still have those goalposts out there. They removed that. The crow's nest for the football game, that was even out in center field. They had to move that out. So it just kind of went through a big rework, and they played their first home game last Wednesday. It didn't go their way, but it was just a really big night for the Ramona Express and specifically the DeRungs family. It's the field is named DeRungs Memorial Field, and I believe there was a relative playing at all four infield positions for the Express. So that was just something really cool to see. But yeah, I think we posted that story about Monday. So if you haven't read it, go check it out on the website. Um, as far as other stuff going on the weekend, though, Ryan, you were at the Blarney's Baseball Classic, the inaugural Blarney's Baseball Classic. I mean, what did you think of it, and how did it go?
Anytime you get to spend an afternoon or I guess a full day at Cadwell Park and Mitchell watching and covering some amateur baseball, it's always a good day and a fun day. It was a fun event, and like you said, the inaugural, Blarney's Baseball Classic. DW helped put that together with their team makers organization or whatever, and it was just a very fun event with a lot of local teams. A lot of the Sunshine, the Pony Hills, and the Corn Belt teams. Very fun event to cover and check out. Probably the only time we'll be at Cadwell Park this year for some amateur baseball, at least a full day's amateur baseball and everything. So props to Brad Barcher and Ross Simple and Jason Christensen for organizing that event. It was a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see moving forward if they continue to do that. I certainly think that's the plan and that's in the works. But certainly a fun event to cover, and I think one that we'll have to kind of look forward to, for hopefully years to come and everything. And then John, another story that you're working on is another new team, I guess, or a revival of a team, the Harrisburg Woodies. What can you tell us about those guys?
Well, yeah, last week I did a story on the Beersford Blues, and that's a team that was revived from, I think the last year was 2017, and they're back this year. It's the same thing for Harrisburg. The Harrisburg Woodies, last year they played was in 2019. I think lost in maybe the first round of the state tournament, and they're back this year, but they're back as a Class A team. And the reason they even discontinued their program essentially was at the time Harrisburg was a really growing community, and they had kind of reached that above 5,000 population threshold for a Class A team, and they just didn't really get enough support yet from the amateur realm, and They just really weren't going to have enough guys that were going to be able to field a team. So, kind of an interesting story about how, they kind of folded as a team back in 2019. Some of the guys played at other programs. If you know anything about, amateur baseball in the past 5 years, the Del Rapids Mudcats, they went back to back in 21 and 22. A lot of those guys are guys that are back on the Harrisburg Woodies this year. So a lot of history with that team as well. I think they made the state semifinals in Class B in 2017 and 18. And this year, they've just rolled from the jump. I think they're 10-0, number one ranked team in Class A. And they have an excellent pitching staff. I think they've only given up about 14 or 15 runs in 10 games, which is just unbelievable. But yeah, I'll be working on that story. Just got done talking with their manager, so we'll have that story out here in the coming days on 605sports.com as well. So making the rounds on the new teams in amateur baseball. So
Yeah, very cool. I remember a few years ago, one of the most memorable amateur games I ever watched was the Alexandria Angels and the Harrisburg Woodies. Like you referenced, played in the semifinals. Rain delay at Cadwell Park. Game got pushed back. Obviously, started roughly around 11-ish. I think didn't finish till well after 1 o'clock, and just a great game. And that was right in the middle of that run that the Angels were on right there. Where they were winning those championships and competing for championships. And I think it was like a 1-0 kind of a game. And Jim Jocko Johnston joked, one of the best games he's ever seen in amateur baseball, and hardly anybody saw it, just because of the rain delay, and a lot of people never came back and everything. So very cool to see the Harrisburg Woodies back in the amateur scene. It's like you said, very formidable team. That's certainly going to be a tough team in Class A. Another thing that John's kind of quarterbacked, so to say, here recently for us was the stat leaders. Compiled all of the stat leaders for amateur baseball throughout the state. And John, would like to give a plug to that. Anything really jump out to you with the first batch of the stat leaders that we had earlier this week?
Well, first thing I'll say is obviously, it's still very early in the season, so there's not much separation when you look at, doubles, triples, homers. So I think we had maybe close to 25 guys on the triples list, or however many were on the other ones as well. But, a lot can change yet. A couple of teams have really only played maybe one or two games thus far. So still a lot of baseball yet to be played as far as those stat leaders. But the one that, really stood out to me was Alexandria's Jackson Jarding. Earlier in the year, he had a 9 RBI game against the Parkston Mudcats. And now, on the year, he's got 22 RBIs. Other stats, I think he's tied for second in homers and triples. I think he's tied for fifth in doubles. So he's had a great year, and he's a young player. I think maybe second year out of high school, I think now. So he's going to be a guy to look out for this season, especially, and the many years to come. But yeah, he's just one guy that, as I'm making the tedious rounds, going through game changers and whatnot, his name just kept popping up. So that was really, really cool to see.
Yep, very cool. People can look forward to the stat leaders. Now, weekly feature on 605sports.com now until the rest of the season. And also we've compiled as best we can the standings, the amateur baseball standings. That can be a lot of work, but I think we got them right for the first week and everything. So we'll continue to unveil those and the stat leaders throughout the rest of the season. All righty.
Yeah. Let's hope we get those standings
Yeah.
correct, because that is some tedious work there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty, John. Well, this is fun as always, and we'll catch up with you next week and see what else we got going on with some amateur baseball.
Absolutely.